Mr. Downs's class. You are in for a treat today, I tell you. This is Mrs. Downs, wife of Jacob Downs, and I get to be a special guest reader today for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We're going to start right off right now. Harry woke up at 5 o'clock the next morning and was just too excited and nervous to go back to sleep. He got up and pulled on his jeans because he didn't want to walk into the station in his wizard's robes. He'd change on the train. He checked his Hogwarts list yet again to make sure he had everything he needed, saw that Hedwig was shut safely in her cage, and then paced the room, waiting for the Dursleys to get up. 2 hours later, Harry's huge, heavy trunk had been loaded into the Dursleys' car. Aunt Petunia had talked Dudley into sitting next to Harry, and they'd set off. They reached King's Cross at 10:30. Uncle Vernon dumped Harry's trunk onto a cart and wheeled it into the station for him. Harry thought this was strangely kind until Uncle Vernon stopped dead, facing the platforms with a nasty grin on his face. "Well, there you are, my boy. Platform 9, platform 10. Your platform should be somewhere in the middle, but they don't seem to have it built yet, do they?" He was quite right, of course. There was a big plastic 9 over one platform and a big plastic 10 over the one next to it, and in the middle, nothing at all. "Have a good term," said Uncle Vernon with an even nastier smile. He left without another word. Harry turned and saw the Dursleys drive away. All three of them were laughing. Harry's mouth went dry. What on earth was he going to do? He was starting to attract a lot of funny looks because of Hedwig. He'd have to ask someone. He stopped a passing guard, but didn't dare mention platform 9 3/4. The guard had never heard of Hogwarts, and when Harry couldn't even tell him what part of the country it was in, he started to get annoyed, as though Harry was being stupid on purpose. Getting desperate, Harry asked for the train that left at 11 o'clock, but the guard said that wasn't one, and in the end the guard strode away, muttering about time wasters. Harry was now trying hard not to panic. According to the large clock over the arrivals board, he had 10 minutes left to get on the train to Hogwarts, and he had no idea how to do it. He was stranded in the middle of the station with a trunk he could hardly lift, a pocket full of wizard money, and a large owl. Hagrid must have forgotten to tell him something you had to do, like tapping on the third brick to the left to get in the Diagon Alley. He wondered if he should get out his wand and start tapping on the ticket inspector's stand between platforms 9 and 10. At that moment, a group of people passed just behind him, and he caught a few words of what they were saying. Packed with muggles, of course. Harry swung around. The speaker was a plump woman who was talking to 4 boys, all with flaming red hair. Each of them was pushing a trunk like Harry in front of him, and they had an owl. Heart-hammering, Harry pushed his cart after them. They stopped, and so did he, just near enough to hear what they were saying. "Now what's the platform number?" said the boy's mother. 9 3/4, piped a small girl, also red-headed, who was holding her hand. "Mom, can't I go?" "You're not quite old enough, Ginny. Now be quiet. All right, Percy, you go first." What looked like the oldest boy marched towards platform 9 and 10. Harry watched, careful not to blink in case he missed it. But just as the boy reached the dividing barrier between the two platforms, a large crowd of tourists came swarming in front of him, and by the time the last backpack had cleared away, the boy had vanished. "Fred, you're next," said the plump woman. "I'm not Fred, I'm George," said the boy. "Honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother? Can't you tell I'm George?" "Sorry, George, dear. I'm only joking. I'm Fred," said the boy, and he went off. His twin called after him to hurry up, and he must have done so, because a second later he had gone. But how had he done it? Now the third brother was walking briskly toward the barrier. He was almost there, and then suddenly he wasn't anywhere. There was nothing else for it. "Excuse me," said Harry to the plump woman. "Hello, dear," she said. "First time at Hogwarts? Ron's new too." She pointed at the last and youngest of her sons. He was tall, thin, and gangling, with freckles, big hands and feet, and a long nose. "Yes," said Harry. The thing is, I don't know how to get onto the platform," she said kindly, and Harry nodded. "Not to worry," she said. "All you have to do is walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Don't stop, and don't be scared. You'll crash into it, that's very important. Best do it in a bit of a run if you're nervous. Go on. Go now before Ron." Okay," said Harry. He pushed his trolley around and stared at the barrier. It looked very solid. He walked toward it. People jostled him on their way to the platforms 9 and 10. Harry walked more quickly. He was going to smash right into that barrier, and then he'd be in trouble. Leaning forward on his cart, he broke into a heavy run. The barrier was coming nearer and nearer. He wouldn't be able to stop. The cart was out of control. He was a foot away. He closed his eyes, ready for the crash. It didn't come. He kept on running. He opened his eyes. A scarlet steam engine was waiting next to a platform packed with people. A sign overhead said Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Harry looked behind him and saw a wrought iron archway where the barrier had been, with the platforms 9 3/4 on it. He had done it. Smoke from the engine drifted over the heads of the chattering crowds, while cats of every color wound here and there between their legs. Owls hooted to one another in a disgruntled sort of way over the babble and scraping of the heavy trunks. The first few carriages were already packed with students, some hanging out of the windows to talk to their families, some fighting over seats. Harry pushed his cart off down the platform in search of an empty seat. He passed a round boy who was saying, "Gran, I've lost my toad again." "Oh, Neville!" He heard the old woman sigh. A boy with dreadlocks was surrounded by a small crowd. "Give us a look, Lee. Go on." The boy lifted the lid out of the box of his arms, and the people looked around him, shrieked and yelled as something inside poked out a long, hairy leg. Harry pressed through the crowd until he found an empty compartment near the end of the train. He put Hedwig inside first, and then started to shove and heave his trunk toward the train door. He tried to lift it up the steps, but could hardly raise one end, and twice he dropped it painfully on his foot. "Want a hand?" It was one of the red-haired twins he had followed through the barriers. "Yes, please," Harry panted. "Oi, Fred, come here and help!" With the twins' help, Harry's trunk was at last tucked away in the corner of the compartment. "Thanks," said Harry, pushing his sweaty hair out of his eyes. "What's that?" said one of the twins suddenly, pointing at Harry's lightning scar. "Blimey!" said the other twin. "Are you?" "He is!" said the first twin. "Aren't you?" he added to Harry. "What?" said Harry. "Harry Potter!" chorused the twins. "Oh, him," said he at Harry. Yes, I am." The two boys gawked at him, and Harry felt himself turning red. Then, to his relief, a voice came floating through the train's open door. "Fred, George, are you there?" "Come on, coming, Mom." And with the last look at Harry, the twins hopped off the train. Harry sat down next to the window where, half hidden, he could watch the red-haired family on the platform and hear what they were saying. Their mother had just taken out her handkerchief. "Ron, you've got something on your nose." The youngest boy tried to jerk out of the way, but she grabbed him and began rubbing the end of his nose. "Mom, off!" He wiggled free. "Ah, has Ickle Ronnie got some fickled on his nosy?" said one of the twins. "Shut up," said Ron. "Where's Percy?" said their mother. "He's coming now." The oldest boy came striding into sight. He had already changed into his billowing black Hogwarts robe, and Harry noticed a shiny silver badge on his chest with the letter P on it. "Can't stay long, Mother," he said. "I'm up in front. The prefects have got 2 compartments to themselves." "Oh, you are Prefect Percy?" said one of the twins with an air of great surprise. "You should have said something. We had no idea." "Hang on, I think I remember him saying something about it," said the other twin. "Once or twice. A minute all summer." "Oh, shut up," said Percy the Prefect. "How come Percy gets new robes anyway?" said one of the twins. "Because he's a prefect," said their mother fondly. "All right, dear. Well, have a good time. Send me an owl when you get there." She kissed Percy on the cheek and he left. Then she turned to the twins. "Now, you two, this year you behave yourselves. If I get one more owl telling me you've blown up a toilet or—" "Blown up a toilet? We've never blown up a toilet." "Great idea, though. Thanks, Mom." "It's not funny. And look after Ron." "Don't worry, Ickle Ronnikins is safe with us." "Shut up," said Ron. He was almost as tall as the twins already, and his nose was still pink where his mother had rubbed it. "Hey, Mom, guess what? Guess who we just met on the train?" Harry leaned back quickly so he couldn't see him. "You know that black-haired boy who was near us in the station? You know who he is?" "Who?" "Harry Potter." Harry's heard the little girl's voice. "Oh, Mom, can I go on the train and see him, Mom? Oh, please." "You've already seen him, Ginny, and the poor boy isn't something you goggle at in the zoo." "Is it really, Fred? How do you know?" "Asked him. Saw his scar. It really is there like lightning." "Poor dear. No wonder he was alone, I wondered. He was ever so polite when he asked how to get on the platform." "Never mind that. Do you think he remembers you-know-who, what he looks like?" The mother suddenly became very stern. "I forbid you to ask him, Fred. No, don't you dare. As though he needs reminding of that on his first day of school." "All right, keep your hair on." The sound whistled. Hurry up, their mother said, and the three boys clambered on the train. They leaned out the window to kiss them goodbye, and the youngest sister began to cry. Don't, Ginny. We'll send you loads of owls. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat. George! Only joking, Mom. The train began to move. Harry saw the boys' mother waving and their little sister, half laughing, half crying, running to keep up with the train until it gathered too much speed. Then she fell back and waved. Harry watched the girl and her mother disappear as the train rounded the corner. Houses flashed past the window. Harry felt a great leap of excitement. He didn't know what was going to, but it had to be better than what was leaving behind. The door of the compartment slid open and the youngest redhead boy came in. Anyone sitting there? He asked, pointing to a seat opposite side of Harry. Everywhere else is full. Harry shook his head as the boy sat down. He glanced at Harry and then looked quickly out the window, pretending he hadn't looked. Harry saw he had still a black mark on his nose. Hey, Ron, the twins were back. Listen, we're going to go down the middle of the train. Lee Jordan's got a giant tarantula down there. Right, mumbled Ron. Harry, said the other twin, did we introduce ourselves? Fred and George Weasley. And this is Ron, our brother. See you later, then. Bye, said Harry and Ron. The twins slid the compartment door shut behind them. Are you really Harry Potter? Ron blurted out. Harry nodded. Oh, well, I thought it might be one of Fred and George's jokes, said Ron. And you've really got, you know. He pointed to Harry's forehead. Harry pulled back his bangs to show the lightning scar. Ron stared. So that's where you know who. Yes, said Harry, but I can't remember it. Nothing? Said Ron eagerly. Well, I remember a lot of green light, but nothing else. Wow, said Ron, and he stared at Harry for a few moments. Then, as though he'd suddenly realized what he was doing, he looked quickly out of the window again. Are all your family wizards? Asked Harry, who found Ron just as interesting as Ron found him. Yes, I think so, said Ron. I think Mom's got a second cousin who's an accountant, but we never talk about him. So you must know loads of magic already. The Weasleys were clearly one of those old wizardling families the pale boy in Diagon Alley had talked about. I heard you went to live with the Muggles, said Ron. What were they like? Horrible. Well, not all of them. My aunt and uncle cousins are, though. Wish I had 3 wizard brothers. 5, said Ron. For some reason he was looking gloomy. I'm the 6th in our family to go to Hogwarts. You could say I got a load to live up to. Bill and Charlie already left. Bill was a head boy and Charlie was captain of Quidditch. Now Percy's a prefect. Fred and George mess around a lot, but they still got really good marks, and everyone thinks they're really funny. Everyone expects me to do as well as others, but if I do, it's no big deal because they did it first. You never get anything new either with 5 brothers. I got Bill's robes, Charlie's old wand, and Percy's old rat. Ron reached inside his jacket and pulled out a fat gray rat which was asleep. His name's Scabbers, and he's useless. He hardly ever wakes up. Percy's got an owl from my dad for being made a prefect, but they couldn't Scabbers. I got Scabbers instead. Ron's ears went pink. He seemed to think he had said too much because he went back staring out of the window. Harry didn't think there was anything wrong with not being able to afford an owl. After all, he had never had any money in his life until a month ago, and he told Ron so all about having not to wear Dudley's old clothes and never getting proper birthday presents. This seemed to cheer Ron up. And until Hagrid told me, I didn't know anything about being a wizard or about my parents or Voldemort. Ron gasped. What? Said Harry. You said you know whose name, said Ron, sounding both shocked and impressed. I have thought you'd, of all people. I'm not trying to be brave or anything, saying the name, said Harry. I just never knew you shouldn't. See what I mean? I've got loads to learn, I bet. He added, voicing for the first time something that had been worrying him a lot. I bet I'm the worst in the class. You won't be. There's loads of people who come from Muggle families, and they learn quick enough. While they had been talking, the train carried them out of London. Now they were speeding past fields full of cows and sheep. They were quiet for a time, watching the fields and lanes flick past. Around 12:30, there was a great clattering outside in the corridor, and a smiling, dimpled woman slid back the door and said, Anything off the cart, dears? Harry, who hadn't got any breakfast, leapt to his feet, but Ron's ears went pink again, and he muttered that he'd brought a sandwich. Harry went out to the corridor. He'd never had any money for candies with the Dursleys, and now that he had pockets rattling with gold and silver, he was ready to buy as many Mars bars as he could. But the woman didn't have any Mars bars. What she did have were Bertie Bott's every flavored beans, Drooble's best blowing gum, chocolate frogs, pumpkin pasties, cauldron cakes, liquor swans, and a number of other strange things Harry had never seen in his life. Not wanting to miss anything, he got some of everything and paid the woman 11 silver sickles and 7 bronze nuts. Ron stared at Harry, and as Harry brought a ball back into the compartment and tipped it onto an empty seat. Hungry, are you? Starving, said Harry, taking a large bite of pumpkin pasty. Ron had taken out a lumpy package and unwrapped it. There were 4 sandwiches inside. He pulled one of them apart and said, "She always forgets I don't like corned beef." "Swap you for one of these," said Harry, holding up the pasty. "Go on. You don't want to miss this. You don't want this. It's all dry," said Ron. "She hasn't got much time," he added quickly, with 5 of us. "Go on, have a pasty," said Harry, who had never had anything to share before, or, indeed, anyone to share it with. It was a nice feeling, sitting there with Ron, eating their way through all of Harry's pasties, cakes, and candies. The sandwiches lay forgotten. "What are these?" asked Harry. Harry asked Ron, holding up a pack of chocolate frogs. "They're not really frogs, are they?" He was starting to feel that nothing would surprise him. "No," said Ron, "but see what the card is. I'm missing Agrippa." "What?" "Oh, of course you wouldn't know. Chocolate frogs have cards inside them, to collect famous witches and wizards. I've got about 500, but I haven't got Agrippa or Ptolemy." Harry unwrapped his chocolate frog and picked up the card. It showed a man's face. He wore half-moon glasses and had a long, crooked nose, flowing silvery hair, beard, and mustache. Underneath the picture was the name Albus Dumbledore. "So this is Dumbledore," said Harry. "Don't tell me you'd never heard of Dumbledore," said Ron. "Can I have a frog? I might get Agrippa." "Thanks." Harry turned over his card and read, "Albus Dumbledore, currently headmaster of Hogwarts." Considered by many the great wizard of modern times, Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner Nicholas Flamel. Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and 10-pin bowling. Harry turned the card back over and saw to his astonishment that Dumbledore's face had disappeared. "He's gone!" "Well, you can't expect him to hang around all day," said Ron. "He'll be back. No, I've gotten Morgana again. I got about 6 of her. Do you want it? You can start collecting." Ron's eyes stared straight to the pile of chocolate frogs waiting to be unwrapped. "Help yourself," said Harry. But in the Muggle world, people just stay put in photos." "Do they? What, do they not move at all?" said Ron, amazed. "Weird." And that, my friends, is going to conclude our session today of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It has truly been my pleasure to read to you today, and I do hope I get the chance again. I hope you students are being studious and behaving and listening to that nice Mr. Downs. And now I must say, adios.